US Rugby Happy Hour Live. Interviews with the biggest names in American rugby.
Consecutive MLR championship, and Team USA make history in Paris.
USA Rugby is heading to Australia.
Here are your hosts, Bill Baker and that other guy.
Hello and welcome to US Rugby Happy Hour Live. I'm Bill Baker. This is John Fitzpatrick. Fitzy, how are you doing on this wonderful day?
Doing great, man. Major League Rugby's back. Training camps are underway. We got a new referee review system. We got a lot to talk about.
We should probably talk about that tonight. That very thing. So, in this show, we are pulling back a curtain, probably from the most scrutinized and arguably the most fit people on the pitch, a Major League referee, specifically with Luke Rogan here in a couple minutes. Luke's also just refereed the U20s Six Nations, which is a great accomplishment for him, and we'll talk to him briefly about that too. But also there's some news that came up in full disclosure. Fitzy, I think you know this too. We booked Luke before the news came out about the review system.
That is true.
Getting rid of the TMO. So I'd like to say it was the other way around. Oh, we got him right away, but we already had him booked, so good timing. Unless MLR said, wait, Luke's on the show, we should release it before the show. No? Okay. Yeah, with that said, we're going to have a lot of fun with him. Again, Luke Rogan joins us just in a couple minutes. Fitzy, it's spring, too. You said Major League Rugby's kicking off again soon. I'm so excited about it. I feel like it's going to be here, like, before we even know it. I'm going to go, oh, crap, there's a game this weekend. We have to go. Yeah, I don't know what to say with that. I'm just excited.
Yeah, I mean, end of March, I think Saturday, March 28th, California Legion versus Anthem. That's going to kick off the Major League Rugby season. You know, if you're following along on Instagram, you're seeing all the team photos, seeing like who's in camp, who's not there. Then visa issues happening. You know, it's always fun to see the player photos. But yeah, man, it's 2 weeks. A very turbulent off season, but here we are on the cusp of the regular season. Can't be more excited.
Turbulence. What happened? I don't. Okay.
Not much. Just,
all right.
Stuff.
Yeah, stuff. All right, let's get into it here in a minute. But first of all, listeners and viewers on the YouTube channel as well, please like, follow, and subscribe to this show, to the podcast. They come out on Thursdays. They're available on every podcast player, pretty much every podcast player. Go ahead and comment. Give us a nice 5-star review, and just be gentle. Fitzy and I have emotions, and just be kind. You are fragile. All right, that's it. Yeah, we're at G-Lay. Let's get into our first guest, and as usual, we'll do it via a tune.
Today's guest.
Your own guest.
From the club grounds of New South Wales to Major League Rugby. An MLR referee with merely 72 appearances. One of the most experienced refs in MLR history.
Yes.
Please welcome to the show, Centurion in waiting, an international referee, Luke Rogan.
There he is. Let me turn that down. That's really loud. Luke Rogan, how are you?
Yeah, great, fellas. How are you?
Good. Thanks for giving us your time here. You know, I don't think the rugby podcasts in America give referees enough attention on podcasts with the referee on. I mean, I'm sure they do in other ways, but man, thank you for jumping in with us.
Appreciate it. I don't know how I'm going to follow that entrance though. That was great. Thanks for that.
Well, if you'd like, we can give you the MP3 and you can ask the stadiums to play it for you when you walk out into the pitch.
Definitely, yes.
So, Luke, who are you when you're not refereeing a game? And please say spy.
I wish. I'm just the house husband. My wife runs the place. I just look after it. That's what all it is. That's just me. So, and I'm quite happy with that. So, I just plod around and referee rugby around the world when I get the opportunity. So,
nice.
So, Luke, I gotta imagine that might be good training for like your method for just ignoring the noise around you. Do you hear it all from the crowd? Do you hear certain things? Do you block certain things out? Do you ever like smirk if you hear like a funny remark?
Look, the good remarks are the ones that you do hear. The ones that are intelligent, the ones that have been thought through, the ones that you go, yeah, that's smart. Like, I like that one. Yeah, look, most of the time I don't hear it. Like, we've got one ear generally that's clogged up with a communication system, and you're only hearing your assistants and the TMO and that sort of thing. And then I'm lucky enough that it's hard of hearing in the other ear, so we're all good on that side. So, you don't hear too much of it, especially with 30-odd players on the ground, and then, the likes of Seattle, where you've got 4,000 or 5,000 people and they're all screaming at the same time. You can't hear anything. So.
Yeah, I hear there's fans up in New England. Bill knows. He's a New England fan. They're just completely obnoxious.
Very polite, extremely polite.
Super polite. Yeah.
But yeah, Luke, tell us a little bit about yourself, because when you hear about rugby, people, when they're young, they're like, "Oh, I want to grow up to be a rugby player. I want to go play in the Rugby World Cup." You don't hear too often from kids saying, "I want to be a referee. I want to be a match official. I want to be a baseball umpire." So, tell us about your journey into that role. What got you into it, and what led you along to keep going?
Yeah. I wasn't one of those either. I want to play for the Wallabies, right? So, grew up playing since I was about 4 or 5. My old man played when he was my age and growing up, and then stopped because of his job. So as soon as I was able to, I was down at the rugby club, and we were playing rugby every time that I had some free time. Continued that till I was around sort of 15, 16. And my old man started refereeing as well, because I was the way that works in Australia, under 10s, you play at 8 a.m, something ridiculous in the wintertime in the fog. And then it slowly builds into the day from there. And about 16, 17, 18, you play at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So as I got older, it was easier for Dad to sort of, and he was always involved in the rugby club. He was a president at the first club that I played for. And then Mum was secretary. So it ran in the family. So once I moved clubs, it was closer to home. He wasn't on the board, but wanted to give back to rugby. So he became a referee, started refereeing after my games, and then ended up before my games. And I sort of ended up that I was training sort of 3 or 4 nights a week, playing Saturday and Sunday, going to school. So it got to the point where I was a teenager going, I need some money to actually do some things that I want to do around the place. But no job is going to take me, considering I'm training ridiculous times and playing both weekend days. So I joined refereeing, like Dad, and paid $20 a game or something like that. It was just a bit of pocket money and a good warm up for my games. And I saw it as a way to just learn a whole lot more about the game, be better at what I did. And that sort of went from there. And then sort of around 16, 17, 18, I can't remember exact timings. I decided I'd get myself knocked out a few times in a few weeks, and this was pre the concussion stuff. Yes, I am that old, and broke my nose a few times, and decided sitting in a classroom at one point that I'm not exactly focusing here, and maybe I should give up playing. I'm not the biggest guy. I was 60 kilos ring and wet back then. Not the biggest guy. Let's give this away and focus on refereeing. And I was lucky enough to get into some programs through New South Wales Rugby and then Australian Rugby, and it sort of took up from there.
Well, you clearly have practiced quite a bit and learned your craft really well. And when you're looking at laws of the game, they can be pretty intricate and at times complex, especially for the fans. But so how often do you get into the laws, dig into them, and review them?
When it changes a lot, right? That's when things start to occur. Very often at the moment. There was a classic one a few years back, or more than a few years back now, where World Rugby banned the receiver coming into the line-out, which changed the numbers. So they banned them from doing that. But they had forgotten about the law or had not remembered that there was a law saying you could change direction or positions with anybody in the line-out at any time during the line-out. So you couldn't add a number in, you couldn't add that receiver in without somebody coming out. So then you had to read and make sure that, yes, I understand that this guy can't come in. He's got to start 2 meters back. He can do all of these things. He can come in this time. This is when he can add in. So when the ball's thrown, you can actually add the receiver in because the ball is in the air already. So that's the sort of times you go back and go, I need to really read through the law again and make sure that I'm across that. Because there are consequences for every change, right? Look at the 20-minute red card laws. That now has consequences for substitutions. There's flow-on effects every time we change a law. So that's when you go back and you review it and you go, okay, I'm comfortable with this and comfortable with all the permutations that can come from that.
Yeah. Now, Fitzy wanted to play a game with you. He wanted to do a law number game with you and throw a number at you and see if you could tell us right away what it is.
I'm terrible with
it. Well, I don't think we know any of the numbers anyway.
Yeah, it changes all the time too. They add ones and subtract them, and the new law book is cut down, and it changes.
So if I were to say law 19.17, which
you've already lost me. So
I had to look it up too. What is a scrum? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Look, let's talk a little about some other aspects of the game, and Bill mentioned it off the top, right? Just match officials have to be very fit. Like, what is the physical, mental preparation like to ref a game? So there are does MLR or maybe World Rugby have certain fitness standards that match officials have to meet?
Yeah. So we are quite strict is not the right word for it, but we are tracked on our fitness. So we are expected for a Bronco time around 5 minutes, not too far over it. Not you want to be as under it as you can, but the goal is always 5 minutes. And anyone that's run a Bronco will know that that sounds pretty easy, but by the third or the fourth Bronco turn, you're dying. And you're trying to get through it. So there's pretty strict there in terms of, you have to maintain a level of fitness. You can't rock out with an 8-minute Bronco and expect to be, refereeing in the MLR and then higher. And then sort of the mental side of that, you're making sure that you're physically able to think when you're fatigued. So, getting on a treadmill in the gym and then looking at clips when you are very fatigued is sort of one of the ways I do it anyway, just to make sure that when I am at the 79th minute, 81st minute, whatever it happens to be in a game, I can actually focus on the job I have to do and be at the position to make those decisions as well. So,
Do you wear?
We are generally trying to be possible.
Yeah. Do you wear one of those trackers that the players wear?
Yes. Yeah.
You do.
Yeah. So depending on the game, like every game's slightly different. I think one of the games last year I did about 7.5K in a game. I can't do the miles thing still. I've been here for 8 years. I still can't do miles and that kind of stuff. Kilometers makes more sense to me, but I think it was 7.5 kilometers. I think the 26 Nations games I've done recently were about 6.5 roughly kilometers per game. So it doesn't sound like a lot in an 80-minute game, but when most of those are sprint numbers, and then you stop and you're setting up lineouts or setting up scrums, it's quite high speed. You're doing high speed numbers.
So you were just involved in the refereeing the U26 Nations. Congratulations on getting that assignment.
Thank you.
Talk about that experience of doing that. I know it's U20 level, European rugby, very good. Talk about the experience of doing that and some stuff you took away from it.
Yeah, I mean, great experience. I was lucky enough to be in Northampton in England for the first match, England-Wales, and then do Italy and Ireland in Cork the week after. Great experiences, both games. Cinch, Franklin's Gardens in Northampton is amazing. It's a stunning place to go and play rugby. It may have been an inch worth of water floating on the pitch at the time because it had rained for 3 weeks straight. But it's still a great atmosphere. I think there was 6,000, 7,000 people there in the stadium, and they were loud. You get the English singing "Swing Low, Sweet Chariot" where you're trying to pack a scrum and that kind of stuff, which was great. And those boys, the 20s, are out there to just go as hard as they can for as long as they can. So. Some of the rugby there was great. They really just went hammer and tong at each other for a lot of that. And then in Cork was the same. That was an artificial pitch, so there was no standing water. And the Italians and the Irish went at it, and it was great. Like, I don't think I've ever blown as many holding on turnover penalties as I did in that match. I think one of the Italian captain got 5 turnovers alone, and 3 of those were penalties. So, great rugby. They know what they're doing. They're doing it at pace. They're pushing as hard as they can for as long as they can, and then they're going off, stumbling off, and somebody else is coming on and doing the same thing. So, it's a sprint. It's a 5-week sprint or 6-week sprint this year, and they just go hard. So it was a great experience.
Yeah, look, thinking back on that experience, what is, or is there one thing maybe you learned from the international stage or the matches that maybe you're most eager to bring back to MLR this year?
Yes and no. I mean, we are pretty well aligned at the MLR with what World Rugby are trying to do, which is a great thing. You've spoken to Wilco on here before. Him and his coaching staff, Alan Roland and Dave McHugh, are pretty well aligned with what's going on at World Rugby, which is really good for us. So, when I went to the 26 nations, I knew the expectations, and I knew, what refereeing was going to be like there, because they had to prepare me quite well, and through the MLR we'd been quite well prepared. But there are probably little things like not chasing some little decisions here and there that I'll bring back, and that's always a good thing. Just put the whistle in the pocket occasionally for some little things that, yes, they happened, and yes, they kind of mattered, but they kind of in the bigger picture don't. That's probably the biggest takeaway for me.
So last year, I think MLR is interesting. They want to stay within, obviously, how the game is played around the world, but also maybe tweak little things on the margins to keep it exciting, to try and draw in new fans. So last year there was the big hubbub over, this new scrum law, it's going to de-emphasize the scrum. There's going to be no more scrums in Major League Rugby. It's like league now. Nothing wrong with league, but it's not rugby union anymore. It seemed like that blew over, because while there were certain elements of the game that may have changed a little bit, I don't think there was too much of a reduction in scrums that really fundamentally changed the game. Did you, in reffing in MLR last year, did you notice really any difference in the flow of play around scrums?
No, not really, not at all. There was still an option to take a scrum when the teams wanted to. The knock-ons, we were still going scrum. It was just taking away some of the scrums at timings where, we blow a free kick for something and we then spend another minute packing a scrum, and it takes away from the game. That sort of stuff. I think you guys had Wilco on here after the first week last year, and we actually had one more scrum on average per game than we did the previous year. So, the whole taking away of scrums, I don't think that's the plan. I think we want to entertain and be entertaining, and we still want the traditional values of rugby and still have scrums and still allow the power of the forwards to come to the forefront. But when we can get rid of some of the downtime moments where we can speed things up, and you look at how LA played last year, they played everything at a very high tempo, and tried to tap and go at a lot of the times where normally we would have a scrum. And it was a lot quicker. And it was a whole lot more entertaining. Yes, I understand. We're taking away options of scrums, but at the end of the day, on field, I didn't feel anything like that. Only occasionally.
Speaking of new laws, just came out this past week, a new Major League Rugby referee review system, RRS, could potentially speed up the game and amongst many things, replacing the traditional TMO. I know people are for or against TMO, or how much it's used or how little it's used and what impact it has. So talk about this new law, trialing this new law, I believe, if you want to call it that. Maybe the reason for this new system, is it speed up the game? Is it back to traditional ways of refereeing?
There's a couple of things. I think for us, it was difficult not to see what we were ruling on as a referee in the middle of the pitch. That wasn't to take away from the job that the TMOs were doing. I think most of they were doing a great job. There was times, and there are things that we aren't going to see. It's just the way that rugby is. We've got 30 odd blokes on the field that we have to kind of look around and look through and get around sometimes. So there are times and there are things that, unfortunately, you can be in the best position possible, but you're not going to see. So, there's the TMOs were doing a really good job, but it was difficult because we couldn't see on field what was being ruled on, and we're having to make a decision and give a card on something that we haven't seen, which it just doesn't work in the long run. So I think with the referee review system, I think it's going to be a whole lot more power back in our hands to yes, no, yes, I agree that that's a card, or no, that's not. It's a rugby accident, and we have the feel of the game that's going on at the time, right? Which was also the hard thing for TMOs being off-site. You can't get there. Being in stadium, you get a bit of a feel of the game, and there's a bit of a you don't go on crowd reaction, but you understand that it's a bit heightened. The game's a bit higher in terms of intensity, or a bit lower in terms of intensity, and that kind of stuff, which helps you to go, yes, no, that's doesn't really matter, or that does actually matter. So that was difficult for them, and I think putting it back in our hands is going to allow us to be, okay, well, this is a huge moment here, and this is a high intensity moment. We need to rule on this in this way. So it'll be interesting. Like, I haven't used it yet. I've seen footage I used in the Six Nations. I could go up and see a screen, which was great. But yeah, we'll see what happens with it. It's going to be definitely a change.
Well, talk about let's dig into a little bit. Like, to talk about what each team gets. They get 2 challenges a game. Also, who can request these challenges? The head coach, the captain on the pitch. I don't know, the water boy, which is sometimes a head coach.
Yeah. So it'll be there are two captains challenges, or two team challenges that they can do following a try, which goes back 2 phases. So they can challenge something within the protocol back 2 phases, and the protocol's, I think, public on the MLR website. So if anybody wants to go and have a look and delve into it, I could go into it, but that'll waste the whole hour of our podcast today. So I won't do that. But they can review it on the protocols back 2 phases, which means and 2 phases is a bit of the way it's done in rugby. It's 2 rucks and then back to the pass from the 9 of the previous ruck. So it's not the 3 rucks, but it's the end of that 3rd ruck, if you want to say that, and then you get 1 ruck, 2 rucks, and then the try scored, you can review all the way back to when that 9 passed the ball from that ruck. So they can review stuff there following a try, or they can review foul play incidents. So during a live match, if coaching staff feel that there's a bit of foul play behind our back, or that the tackle was upright and has made head contact, they can go to our 4th official. I think they're throwing a flag. They'll go and talk to the 4th official. They'll let them know what they're going to review, and our in-stadium operator will tee that all up for us. And then when we stop the match at the next stoppage, our 4th official will let us know that there is a review that's been requested, and we'll call time off and go and review that. So within those 2, if they are successful with their query, their review, they retain that review. If they're not, they lose it. Within the last 5 minutes of both halves, I think it's both halves, I'd have to double check, but I'm pretty sure, to stop the potential of slowing down. We're slowing down the game, where that kind of stuff. If they are unsuccessful with a review, they will lose their reviews within that 5-minute period. So, there's a bit of, we're not going to just waste our 2 reviews here because our guys are struggling. Hopefully that's, there's a bit of jeopardy there to that. So it will speed the game up. But yeah, they are able to have 2 reviews, and if successful, they'll hold on to them. If not, they lose them. But then with that as well, I can review things. I can trigger reviews for foul play or try stuff. Yeah.
Luke, I think the most important question out of all this is, do we know the color of this challenge flag?
No, not yet. Not yet. I think I'll find out. We've got our camp in not this weekend, next weekend down in Atlanta. So I think that'll be all covered when we get down to camp, and we get us all in one room and we can go over it and know what colour it is and all that kind of stuff, and we'll go from there.
So what they should do, MLR should do, is playing off of Nigel Owens, the big reveal of the color of the flag. You're in a bathtub and you pull out the flag color and everyone can see what it is.
I'm not as stylish as Nigel, so I won't be doing that personally, but let's see if we can get Wilco to be the one that does that, I think.
Question there, or clarity on this, and because you see in other sports, particularly in Major League Baseball, they have a system where, if a batter doesn't like the umpire's call, strike or ball, can tap the helmet, initiate a review to review a ref's call. That won't be taking place here in Major League Rugby, right? Like a team can't say, "Nah, Luke, you got that wrong. I want to challenge that." That's not happening here.
It's got to come through the captain. So we can't. It's the same across rugby in general, right? Like if a number 10 runs at me and screams at me that I've got something wrong, I'm not going to be like, "You're right, I'm going to review that." That's not going to happen. It'll be through the captain, and it'll be a conversation about what you want to review. I think there is a provision in there saying if we do have teams and water carriers and people screaming at us that we need to review something and trying to trigger our referee review without triggering their review, we can actually penalise. It should go through the captain. Most of it probably will go through the captain. There'll be times where people do get frustrated, and we understand that. Like, as a player myself, I was sometimes when you get penalised, you go, "What? That's crap." Like, there was no way that I was off my feet there. But, we're pretty understanding with that sort of stuff. But, yeah, it'll go through the captain. So not 30 players will be screaming at me.
It's funny. I don't think I've ever heard of a number 9 talking too much to a referee. That's strange.
No, we're generally too busy talking to everybody else. But, no, there's plenty of times where I had a crack.
Yeah. So, like you said, listeners, you can go to the website and really see all the details on the RSS. But let me just hit off what you said earlier again about when this could be thrown, when a captain can request. You mentioned after a try. Is that the only time?
Or foul play. Or a bit of foul.
Okay, so in the middle of a match, the game is still live, or does it need to be a dead ball still, or just the sidelines all of a sudden a red flag or whatever color it's going to be comes flying in?
Game can be live, but we're not going to, the flag gets thrown, we're not going to immediately stop the game because we don't.
So from that moment,
the flag,
yeah,
right. Like we could, it's a similar thing with the TMO. We would have a TMO say, no, you need to stop the game immediately, which would be for a serious act of foul play that's team in possession, that kind of stuff. But generally speaking, we would continue to play until there's a natural stoppage. And then we'd go back and review what would happen. So that's going to happen with the flag or the challenge. It will come to a natural stoppage, and then we'll review from there. So it won't be flag thrown, immediately stop, because we don't know what we're reviewing yet either. So the information's got to get passed to our guys on the sideline, and then teed it all up with the in-stadium operator, and that way we're not wasting time by going over and saying, okay, what do you want to review? Okay, let's find that in the time, because we could have had 5-10 minutes worth of play where they're going back. Generally we're not going to get 10 minutes of non-stop play, right? But we could have a big window, 2-3 minute window where there is a lot of play and they want to review something right back at the start, and we'd have to rewind back and waste time doing all that. So it'll be a natural stoppage while the in-stadium operator tees it all up for us.
And speaking of in-stadium, are you aware, do you know, what are the minimum requirements that each stadium needs to offer up for the system to work? I mean, most of them, I know Starfire, Quincy, they have large video boards. Are there minimum requirements, and are they all going to be the same for each one of those stadiums?
I'm not sure if there's minimum requirements. I know that there'll either be a big screen for us, or there will be a pitch side monitor for us. So, depending on some stadiums, it's just not possible to get a big screen in there, or the technology to get in there. So it'll be probably a pitch side monitor. But some stadiums, like you said, have got big screens and boards. Quincy's got that wonderful board behind the sticks there. So, hopefully it'll be played up there, and everybody in the stadium can see what we're looking at as well.
Well, look, and I think this needs to be said, right? Like, respect for the official, whether you agree with the call or not, is the value of the sport that other sports should heed. I mean, and seriously, I think a lot of that starts, right, with the captains and how they communicate to the team, and just everyone's approach going into the game. I guess as part of that, given this new RSS system, and it may not factor in too much into the games, but will anything change in terms of how you speak with the captains, maybe, I guess, like before the match, especially if one of the captains or a player disagrees with maybe what an RSS ruling may be?
I hadn't really thought about it, to be honest. It being that we haven't had our camp yet, all of that sort of stuff gets hammered out at camp. We sit down as a group and go through it. Hey, how are we going to deal with this sort of stuff? But look, for me personally, off the top of my head, I don't think it's going to change my interactions too much with the captain. If any player generally was to the point where I needed to tell the captain, hey, I don't want to hear from this player anymore, it was that conversation. Hey, captain, I'm sick of hearing from this player. Like, he's not adding value to what is going on out here. You deal with it, and before I have to deal with it. And I think that'll be the same sort of conversation I have. Hey, you deal with this. This is your teammate. You don't want me dealing with this, because the only way I can deal with this is to put him on the sideline. So, and I don't want to get to that point. Generally 99 times out of 100, I don't want to get to that point. There's the one time where you have to, but to keep players on the field as much as possible, and we understand it's a spectacle as well. So, we want to let the team play and play with their full complement. So, no real change from me, I don't think.
when you look across Major League Rugby, you took charge of your first match, I believe, back in 2018. Did you imagine, the league and your career would, reach this level of longevity?
No, honestly, no. I moved here, whenever it was, just before the first season started, and I'd kind of given up to the fact that my refereeing career was over. I refereed back in Sydney and finished my career with New South Wales Rugby as a referee appointments and development officer. Was quite sort of happy to be done, and then things happened and people spoke and people found out that I was here, and I got an opportunity to referee and got lucky and got one of the first sort of traveling AR positions in the MLR that first year, and spent a lot of time working with guys like Scott Green and Chris Asmus, and learned a lot from them, and was lucky enough to get a game, and I didn't expect it to go any further than that. Just sort of take it 1 year at a time, one game at a time, and go from there. And it's what I think it was 8 years later now. I'm at 70 odd games, and I've done 2 finals, which has been amazing. And look, I just hope it continues. I think MLR is a place where it's developing players in a very good way. Like, the skill level and the speed and the physicality have definitely gone up from year one, and that's only going to continue to grow. And I think, long may it continue.
So, Luke, a question here, maybe just match officials in the U.S., and I'll start from my point of view as a youth coach in Southern California Youth Rugby, U10. So it's the first year of tackle rugby. Love all the volunteer coaches and staff and administrators and the referees that come up, because it seems like there's like a scramble or a shortage of referees to have someone come ref the match, and then the coaches from each side say, okay, all right, I'll ref this match. Like, we have a pretty decent understanding of the rules, but certainly not the understanding that someone like yourself has. So that certainly is a challenge there. I mean, I guess from your point of view, like, what ideas or have you seen to try and get more, I don't know, current or former players into wanting to try to become a ref? Because certainly if the level of rugby here in the U.S. wants to get better, it starts with the players and the coaches, but certainly starts with the level of officiating across all leagues, even at such a young age. So I don't know, thoughts on ideas on how to get more people wanting to try to be a ref.
Mate, if you could answer that question, I think unions across the world would love you and employ you if you could figure out why there's a shortage of referees.
Oh, yeah.
Unions across the world are struggling in terms of referee numbers. We struggle here in the States. When I was back appointing referees in Sydney, we struggled. There definitely is a shortage of referees around the world, and that's for a number of reasons. Abuse can be one of them, and tends, unfortunately, to be a big reason. And then people, especially players, want to coach more than they want to referee, because they look at refereeing and they say, "Oh, that's hard. There's a lot of laws. How am I going to keep up with it all with law changes?" And you get given a law book that's that thick, and you go, "Oh, I don't want to read that, and I have to learn that." And but it's not as hard as, once you get into it, it's not as hard as it always feels like it is. It's quite enjoyable. Like, it is a cliche, but it is the best seat in the house. Even at under 10s, like I remember doing under 10s games where you'd say, no, run there, go that way, sweet, yep, great, cool, look at that, push past that ball, don't dive on it, don't put your hands on it, push past that ball.
I'm more
and you tend to
instructing,
coach a little.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So Look, I'd encourage anybody that's involved in rugby, pick up a whistle and give it a go. Like, even if it is under 10s, like, they are some of the most enjoyable games you'll referee. Because, they're kids just out there having fun. And as knowing that as a referee, you're out there to facilitate that fun. Parents, pick up a whistle, enjoy it as well. Don't sit on the sideline and another rugby game or another weekend. It's cold. It's get out there, run around. Like I said, I had my old man as a referee, and he was lucky enough to referee a couple of my games, and that was great fun. It's the closest we're ever going to come to playing a game of rugby together. We've played cricket together, but it's great fun, and I always remember those experiences. So, yeah, look, if you could solve the question, Fitzy, I think people would love you for it. But yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, Luke. Look, obviously players have their idols in the game. Do referees have idols? What would be one of yours? Fitzy mentioned Nigel earlier. You got Jonathan Kaplan, Wayne Barnes, of course, and Fitzy said he did coach, he did referee also a little bit. So, do you have your own referee idol?
Good question. It's hard to go past Barnesy. He was such a good referee for such a long period of time. And look, I've been lucky enough to meet Barnesy and a bunch of these guys that I grew up watching, like Jonathan Kaplan. I grew up watching referee in Australia and in the Super Rugby, and then he was my boss at one point. So, I've been lucky enough to meet these guys and work with some of these people, and I think we take a lot from little bits from everybody, right? So as a referee, you take a little bit from Nigel, and you take a little bit from Barnesy, and you take a little bit from Carl Dixon, and you take a little bit from all of these guys, and Craig Joubert and the calmness that he always had, and stuff like that, and make it your own. So you have guys that you look up to and girls that you look up to and go, the way they did that was excellent, and I want to emulate that and put it in my own way. But like I said, hard to go past Barnesy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, look, maybe this is the Nigel Owens influence, or maybe it's just social media and microphones everywhere, enhancing the broadcast experience. But it seems like every referee has like that mic drop moment, right? That little witty one-liner that they share and it gets shared out on social. But have you ever had a witty one-liner that you said and you realized maybe the stadium mic was off, or realized it was on after you said something you shouldn't have said?
There are times, yes, that I've looked back on the footage and gone, "Oh, I should not have said that," or "Yes, that was when I got stepped on," or a bunch of times that it's come out that I shouldn't have said what I've said, and generally it's a slip of the tongue, and something that happens, and you go, "Oh, no, can't say that." But I'm not a massive one-liner guy. Scott Green was and still is a great one-liner guy, but unfortunately, I have to script most of what I say and just pull it out of the back pocket when I need to say it. I'm not a witty one-liner guy, unfortunately.
All right, Fitzy, actually, I want you to ask her a second to last question here, because I feel like I would be biased because I would be part of one of the crowds that he's about to talk about.
Okay. So Bill is, I believe, is still a season ticket holder of New England Free Jacks.
I'm a founding member, baby.
Founding member. There you go, founding member. So Starfire, obviously in Seattle, great atmosphere, same at Veterans Memorial Stadium there where the Free Jacks play. And we talked a little bit about it maybe off the top, but is there any moment that stands out to you in terms of maybe the most creative or perhaps the most scientifically inaccurate insult a fan has ever yelled at you from the stands that you remember hearing?
Not specifically. Not one that I will share anyway. funnily enough, I'm pretty sure it came from Quincy, which is fine.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Like I said before, we do hear the really good ones, the ones that are intelligent, the ones that, I mean, we've all heard your blind ref or, go to Specsavers or any of those ones. Like, we've all heard them before. But the witty ones are good, and I think the last one, the wittiest one I remember was up at New England, up at Quincy there, and it was pretty good. It was pretty good. Like I said, I won't share it, but going back up there and seeing
email us after
if I.
Well, it could possibly come from the section I stand in right there, right above the tunnel, where some of the loudest people in the crowd are, and I probably heard it, and I probably said, "Oh, come on, guys, stop!" And then I yelled something out. No, just kidding.
It's around the tunnel or that far corner where everyone stands up near the beer tents. That one's always a good corner to be in. Yeah,
that's a tight corner too. Yeah, so they're right above you. Yeah.
Well, hey, Bill, there's a rule in Little League where if a parent yells at an umpire in certain Little Leagues, that parent then has to umpire the next game. So if you get caught yelling at Luke up there in New England, you might have to come down and run the next match.
I try not to say anything to anyone on the field.
If it's witty, if it's witty, I'd love to hear them. Like, makes my day a little bit easier knowing that I can get a little bit of laugh out of it. That's always good.
Yeah, it's a salty bunch. So, Luke, one more question for you. Serious now. Here we go. What are your goals? You did the U20 Six Nations recently. What are your goals as a referee?
I mean, there are a few. I want to first and foremost put my best foot forward for this season, MLR. It's going to be a sprint of a season. With the amount of weeks we've got. So put my best foot forward from game one. The goal is obviously to do a final every year, right? So have that goal as well. And that's the MLR side. And then sort of World Rugby side, who knows? But the goal is always to go as far as I can, right? And push as far as I can forward. And like I said, lucky, and you've said lucky enough to do the 26 Nations. I want to keep going and do hopefully men's Six Nations and then forward from there. But as I said kind of before, try and take it one game at a time and put the best foot forward at each game. And there's a thing in refereeing, and it's the same as players and any sport you do. You've got to control your own controllables. There's people sitting there that will select you, and they may have different opinions, and that's fine. It's totally valid. So you've just got to do what you can do to put your best foot forward. And if they pick you, they pick you. If they don't, you've just got to be happy with that and comfortable knowing that you've done the best you can. So that's always the goal, is to be the best that I can, and go from there.
And the World Cup happens to be on U.S. soil in a number of years. So could be good timing.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
Luke, Rogan, man, thank you so much. It's great to talk to the non-players or non-staff and get your perspective on Major League Rugby and the growth and this new RRS.
Referee review system. I always now say it out because RRS starts to get a bit entangled.
Is absolutely. Luke, thanks again, and hope to say hello to you in person in the frosty, rough tundra of Quincy.
Thank you. No, thanks guys for having me. And yeah, hopefully we'll speak again soon.
All right. Cheers. Good stuff. Yeah, I was serious about that. It's really good to get input from these guys. They're human, right? Unlike us, we're machines. So it's good. It's good to get their perspective, especially with this new system, which I'm pretty sure it's going to be another one of these that will raise eyebrows around the rugby world.
Yeah, I think overwhelmingly people are the vibe has been positive, right? The Major League Rugby is is seeking new ways to keep the game going, not have the TMO be like this eye in the sky and come back and be like, oh, wait a second, and give the control back to the referees. A lot of it will be coming in the implementation and how it works. But yeah, overwhelmingly, I think it's been pretty positive, and we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess we'll see, like you said, in just a few weeks.
I know. It's crazy.
Yeah. All right, listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. Please like, follow, and subscribe to this podcast or the YouTube video that you were watching, if you were watching. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you guys again soon.